The old mansion at the edge of town had just stood there for decades, a forgotten relic of the past. The locals referred to it as Daily Whispering Manor, Guy, a name that seemed to hold in sort of eerie resonance. They were rumors, of course, sort of like whispers of strange occurrences, shadowy figures seen through the cracked windows, and a history soaked in tragedy, but no one had ever dared to venture inside until now. Tonight, Sarah stood at the front gates, her hand gripping the cold, rusted bars as she stared at the decaying structure looming just before her. It was just past 7, the sky tinged with the last remnants of twilight. The autumn air felt so thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. A thick fog had settled over the town, creeping up to the mansion like a blanket of silence. The air was unnaturally still, as if the world itself was just holding its breath. Sarah had always been drawn to the unknown. As a journalist, she had covered plenty of ghost stories, paranormal investigations, and unsolved mysteries, but this place, just like this mansion, Guaya had always intrigued her the most. She'd heard the stories, of course. People said that the mansion was cursed, so that the spirits of those who once lived there still wandered the halls. But Sarah wasn't one to believe in ghost stories. She was just here to investigate the truth, to uncover the secrets that had been buried for so long. With a steadying breath, Sarah pushed open the gate and stepped onto the overgrown path, just leading up to the mansion's front door. The ground beneath her feet was wet from the morning rain, and the fog seemed to cling to her skin, making every step feel like heavier than the last. As she approached the entrance, the massive double doors creaked in the wind, groaning as if warning her to turn back. But Sarah wasn't just one to back down. She took out her flashlight and clicked it on like the beam cutting through the fog in the darkness. The beam landed on the door, revealing intricate carvings that had once been so beautiful, but were now worn and weathered by time. Taking a deep breath, Sarah reached for the door handle, her fingers brushing against the cold like slick metal. The moment she touched the handle, the door swung open with a low, grinding sound, as though it had just been waiting for her. A wave of stale, musty air hit her in the face, and she felt like an unnatural chill seep into her bones. Her heart raced, but she stepped forward, determined to uncover the truth behind the mansion, just dark past. The interior was even worse than she had imagined. The grand foyer, once opulent with its marble floors and gilded chandeliers, was now covered in dust and decay. The air felt thick and stagnant, and the walls seemed to close in around her, their once bright paint now peeling and faded. The only sound was the soft echo of her footsteps on the cracked marble, and the occasional creak of the old wooden beams just overhead. Sarah pulled out her camera and began snapping pictures, just documenting every detail. As she moved further into the house, she noticed the walls seemed to be like whispering. The sound was faint at first, just a soft murmur that could have been the kind of wind or her imagination. But just as she walked deeper into the mansion, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. It was as if someone like Hua or something like Hua was speaking just out of her reach, a voice she couldn't quite understand. She stopped in the middle of the grand hallway, her breath shallow as the whispers seemed to swirl around her, growing louder with each passing just second. It was coming from the walls, from the very foundation of the house. Her pulse quickened as she spun around, trying to locate the source of the voices. And then she saw it. A shadow darting past the doorway at the end of the hall. It was quick, too quick for a person, but it was there just for a split second, a fleeting silhouette that seemed to vanish as soon as she looked at it. Her heart pounded in her chest as she cautiously moved toward the hallway. So the whispers now intensifying. They sounded like distant voices, but the words were muffled, as if they were coming from so far beneath the floorboards. Sarah's instincts told her to run, but her curiosity kept her moving forward, step by step, toward the source of the strange sounds. The hallway led to a large set of double doors, their edges frayed and cracked as though they hadn't been opened in whatever years. The whispers were now deafening, filling her ears, making it hard to think. With a trembling hand, she reached for the door handle, feeling like an overwhelming sense of dread fill her chest estimated. She hesitated for a moment, her mind screaming at her to leave, but something compelled her to just open it. The doors swung open with an eerie creak, revealing a room shrouded in shadows. The air inside was colder, impossibly cold, and Sarah could see her breath just misting in the dim light of her flashlight. She stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the space. It appeared to be like a sitting room with old furniture covered in white sheets. The remnants of a once beautiful grand piano sat in the corner, its keys blackened with just age. Then she heard it, a soft whisper, so close, sent a shiver down her spine. Business? Get out daily. Sarah froze. Voice was unmistakable, and it just came from behind her. She spun around, but no one was really there. Business, get out daily. The voice came again, louder, this time more urgent. It was as if the very walls of the mansion were speaking to her, just warning her to leave. She stepped backward, her heart racing, but the floor beneath her feet seemed to shift, and she just stumbled. As she caught herself, she noticed something in the corner of the room, sort of like, a figure barely visible standing in the shadows. Its form was indistinct, but it was there, watching her. The figure was tall, so its face obscured by a dark hood, but its eyes glowed with a faint, otherworldly light. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. The figure took a step forward and then another. Each step was so slow, so deliberate, like it had all the time in the world. They get out now, running. The voice was louder now, coming from everywhere, all around her. Just a chorus of whispers blending into one. Sarah turned and bolted for the door, but it slammed shut in front of her with a deafening crash. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the mansion, lost in the endless whispers that surrounded her. The figure moved closer, its glowing eyes piercing through the fog and shadows. And then everything went silent. The whispers, the footsteps. Just everything. The figure was gone. Sarah's heart was racing, so her hands trembling as she reached for the door again. This time it opened with no resistance. She ran, not looking back, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she fled down the hall, through the foyer, and out into the foggy night. The mansion loomed behind her, silent once more, its whispers just fading into the wind. Sarah never spoke of what she saw that night, but she would never forget the feeling of those glowing eyes watching her, even just as she ran away. Media, Pusavo to the fearless souls who made it through the tale, unshaken your courage in facing the shadows, unraveling the whispers, and confronting the unknown proves you're not so easily swayed by fear. You stared into the darkness and emerged unscathed, sort of tell you true champions of bravery. Keep that bold spirit alive, for not everyone dares to tread where you have ventured. Socks.